affection for your son and you're committing sin. And Dhritarashtra would say it's true. Whether Dhritarashtra listened or not was another thing. Even when Krishna went to instruct Dhritarashtra that whatever you're doing, you're going to lead to your own ruination. Dhritarashtra said, you know what, you're completely right. I agree with everything that you're saying. But at the same time, I've got so much affection for my son, I have no inclination to do dharma. It's like within me, I know what's right, but I can't do it. It's like someone is pushing me to do the wrong thing. And do you know who that person was? It was actually Krishna. Because some of the people, Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, these were all eternal associates of Krishna. Jarasandha, Kans, these weren't eternal associates of Krishna. So therefore, Krishna could twist these devotees. Like right now, if we all do a play, we're all part of the same team. So whether, let's say that in the Kirtan Mandli, we all decide to also do a drama. And I decide that in the drama, I'll be Kans and Neil will be Krishna. So I may act one way, but ultimately we're still one party. So he said you need good ministers. Thirdly, you need a kingdom. Do you have your kingdom? Because you can have great ministers, you can have a guru, but you don't have a kingdom. Do you know who suffered from this? Bali Maharaj. Sorry, not Bali Maharaj, Sugriv. Sugriv was kicked out of his kingdom by Bali, his brother. So he was living in he didn't have a kingdom. He had like, you know what they call like a makeshift kingdom. Jamvant was his guru, his advisor. Hanumanji was his advisor, but he didn't have a kingdom. He didn't have a wife, so he wasn't happy. Palace, the fourth thing. You need a palace. You can have a kingdom, but if you don't have a palace, where is the king going to stay? A king needs to live because of so much pressure. He needs to have certain comforts. In this world, the more pressure your job has, the more you need on the other side to release your pressure. Unfortunately, people of this world, they don't know how to release their pressure. That's why in modern times, you will see that doctors, what they do is they work extremely hard from Monday to Friday. And then on the weekends, I'm not talking about every doctor in necessarily this country, but in America, what doctors do is they take drugs pretty much the whole weekend, drugs and alcohol. Because what it does is it sanitizes them for the entire weekend. It gives them some sort of a release. Because they're so stressed out working in the weekdays that they completely go into another zone through their drugs and whatever substances they take. And they're in that state for the weekend. They sleep, they get up, take drugs, and they're in some sort of, they're able to then go back on Monday with some form of renewed energy. Of course, this is a tamasic way to deal with it. If they came to the temple and did kirtan, I think it would have been much better for them. But, you know, oh well. Your treasury, the fifth thing is the treasury. Is that all okay? Do you have money? Because you can have everything, but if you don't have money, which is the blood of the entire kingdom, then the kingdom can't function properly. And do you have rule? Means that are there people conspirating against you within the family? So many times a brother's ruling the kingdom and the younger brother wants to take over. Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Dhritarashtra was blind, but he always wanted to be the king because he was the older brother. And do you have allies? Every kingdom should have allies in case something goes wrong. Just this last week I was in Dubai and I was with somebody and I was asking them, Dubai has so much. Has anyone been to Dubai? I think quite a few of you may have gone to Dubai. So if you go to Dubai, you'll see these massive, massive buildings. Everyone is actually quite rich over there. So then this question came in my mind. I said, do they have an army? And the person said, no, they have allies with Saudi Arabia and other countries. Because if someone was to attack Dubai, they don't really have an army to protect themselves. right? They need to rely on allies, so that's important for a kingdom. And then Angira Rishi said that it's important that you as a king should accept advice from other people. A good king doesn't just give advice, he also takes advice. If he only does, if he's completely autocratic, if he only gives instructions, people who are on the ground who are going to tell you that we have a problem with this and this, we have a problem with food and this is the way to sort it out. We have a problem with the treasury, this is the way to sort it out. There are so many things that a king needs to listen to. And a king should also then give advice. So he needs to listen to his ministers and he needs to give advice. This is mutual, beneficial rulership of a kingdom. And then he said, are the people with you? Is everyone with you? Vidroh to nahi hai na? Aapke rajya mein. And he says, are you collecting taxes properly? Are people paying taxes and are you collecting them properly? And are your servants obedient? So Angira Rishi was asking about the welfare of the king. It's important to have servants who are going to obey. As he was asking these questions, Chitraketu Maharaj's face started to become pale. Angira Rishi knew there's something wrong. He said, you don't seem very happy. What's wrong? Tell me. So Chitraketu Maharaj said that because you are such an exalted person, you seem to know everything. You can pick up subtle energies of people very quickly. And this is a fact. As people become more and more exalted, exalted doesn't mean high, it means internal, intrinsic. They understand subtle things very quickly. You don't need to tell them. Srila Prabhupada had this amazing ability to pick up things very quickly. He could understand, he could read the situation. You know, there's a saying in English, read the room. Right? But you've got to be able to read people as well. So first, Chitraketu Maharaj praised Angira Rishi and he said that you're very, you're self-realized, you know the heart of everyone, and since you've asked, I'll tell you the cause for my lamentation. He goes, I have everything, but I don't have a son. I really want a son. And as soon as Angira Rishi heard this, he said, okay, because it is a Rishi's duty to help people who are in distress, especially the king. For a kingdom, for a king, a son is necessary. So Angira Rishi immediately arranged for a yajna, and in which sweet rice, kheer, was actually offered. There are different types of yajnas that you do for different results. So sweet rice yajna was done. And the remnants of that sweet rice yajna was given to the first wife, who was known as Kritta Dyuti. So she was given this sweet rice, and Angira Muni told her that you should have this. And then he left with these parting words. He said to Chitraketu Maharaj, you will have a son. I promise you, you will have a son. But this son will give you joy and distress. And without even hearing the response of Chitraketu Maharaj, Angira Rishi left. At this point, Angira Rishi didn't really understand what he meant. And Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport that what he meant was something else. But what Chitraketu Maharaj understood was, in the beginning, this child will give me a lot of joy. Babies give joy. Right? Especially when they're young, they speak broken language, they're playful, they come and sit on your lap, they keep calling you. And then he thought, but as he grows older, maybe he'll become a badmash, maybe he'll become naughty, maybe he'll become arrogant, and in this way he'll give me pain. But that is better than having nothing. It's better than having no son, so I'll bear it. That's how Chitraketu Maharaj interpreted it. And in due course, his first wife, Kritadyuti, became pregnant. She was expecting. And day by day, the child grew. And eventually, she gave birth to a son. That son was born, and when the son was born, Kritadyuti was extremely happy. Chitraketu Maharaj was extremely happy. He started telling everyone, let's arrange for the name-giving ceremony, the birth ceremony. So many Brahmins came together, so much charity was given. 600 million cows were given in charity to the Brahmins. On top of that, gold was given. On top of that, so many other articles were given. Why is charity given? It's because the more charity you give, the more blessings you get from people. Even if people's blessings, for example, we think blessings are only from elders. The blessings from elders are very powerful. But if many, many people bless you, or from their heart, they wish good upon you, that has some effect in one's life. So especially when you give charity to the Brahmins and the Brahmins bless, it has a very positive effect. Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev, in fact Vasudev wasn't able to give physical charity when Shri Krishna was born, but usne man mein kitna daan diya, gaiya ka daan diya, he gave so much charity in his mind when Shri Krishna was born. And when Krishna, and at the same time, one Krishna was born in Vrindavan as well. One Krishna was born in Mathura, and at the same time, another Krishna was born in Gokul. And today, if you go to Vrindavan, you can actually see Yashoda's Sutika Griha, her maternity room where she gave birth, and she gave birth to 2 children. Jiva Goswami mentions that she gave birth to Maya, Yog Maya, and she gave birth to Krishna at the same time. But because she was overtaken by Yog Maya, she was put in some sort of a mystical sleep. She didn't realize that who she had given birth to. She just knew she gave birth to a child. So anyway, coming back to this, everyone was very happy, very jubilant. And because this son was attained after some difficulty, you know, when you attain something after difficulty, you treasure it. When you attain, for example, if you earn money after trying very hard for many years, that wealth becomes very dear. So this son was extremely dear to both Kritadyuti and to Chitraketu Maharaj. And to the point, because in those times kings used to have their room, the queens used to have their quarters, so every day the evening was spent with Kritadyuti because she was with the child. So the king would spend time with Kritadyuti and the rest of the wives were completely neglected. Shri Shri Rukmani Dwarkadish, Jai Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman Ki Jai Guruvardhan Ki Jai. But there was a problem. His son, that he neglected the rest of the wives. And as soon as women are neglected, because women and men operate very differently in terms of their psychophysical nature. Women require time, they require attention. The most important instrument that a man can give to his wife are his 2 ears. This is the most important thing. A woman doesn't need a man's tongue. A woman needs a man's ears to listen, to empathize. But Chitraketu Maharaj completely neglected his wives, and the wives every day, they developed envy for the first wife, and they thought to themselves, what's the point of our life? We're supposed to give children to the king. We're supposed to have the loving company of our husband. What is this? And they became envious, they became so neglected to the point that poison entered into their heart. And that poison manifested in the desire that let us give poison to this child so that the king comes back to us and doesn't neglect us. They didn't mean to poison the child, they didn't have anything against the child. If Chitraketu Maharaj had spent time with them as well, there wouldn't have been so much of a problem. But because he neglected them, they poisoned the child in order to get their husband back. So very carefully, they administered poison. And then one day, Kritadyuti went to wake up her son, and she saw that he's in deep sleep. So she went away, she was doing some things, and then she realized that, is he still sleeping? So she sent one of her maidservants that jao usko jagao, wake him up. So when the maidservant went into the room, she tried to wake him up, and the child's eyes were turned upwards and there was no breath. You can tell because even in deep sleep, a child's stomach, it expands and contracts, right? No signs of that, no signs of breath. As soon as she saw that, she started wailing and crying. She started releasing sounds of extreme distress. And soon, everyone came, all the residents of the palace came, all the queens came. And all the queens, everyone started crying. And even the queens who had poisoned the child, they pretended to cry. Right? Because imagine if they didn't cry, then you would have been very suspect, right? That, how come you're not crying? Eventually, even the Brahmins who came, because news spread everywhere in the kingdom that this only child of Chitraketu Maharaj has died. So everyone started coming towards the kingdom, and even Chitraketu Maharaj soon found out. When he came, he was so distressed, his helmet was falling off, his hair started moving everywhere. A king is supposed to decorate himself, supposed to have extremely good decorum. Right? He's supposed to present himself very nicely. Recently, Queen Elizabeth passed away. If you see the life of Queen Elizabeth, she was very prim and proper. You don't see Elizabeth like, with uncombed hair, with, clothes tatty. She was so well presented, and this is the duty of the king. But he became in such a situation that whether his dhoti was sideways, he was falling, he was drooling at one point. And there was so much pain in that room that even the Brahmins who normally understand that death can happen at any time. Brahmins are wise. They understand the reality of life. Even they were pained to see the condition of the parents. And then in 3 shloks, Kritadyuti laments like how an ordinary person would lament. She shouted in the air, "My dear Lord." She didn't say my Lord. In fact, she just said, "Oh Vidata, oh destiny, oh God, you're so cruel. You're so cruel. You made a system that a father is supposed to give birth to a child. And the father is then supposed to leave after having some time with that child, and that child grows up, then the father should leave. But look at your cruel system. You haven't thought this system through, because a child can die before the father. What kind of a system is this? You've made the system, and yet you made a system which can break any time. What was the point of making a system like this?" So this was her first reaction. Then her second reaction was that, okay, fine, you can say that everyone comes with their individual karma. So sometimes it is possible for the child to die before the father if the child doesn't have very good karma, and the father has a long life. That's okay as well. But if that's the case, then why did you make attachment? Because the first thing that happens to any parents, whoever is a parent over here will understand this, right? When Krishangi, my daughter, when she was born, I remember Purijan Prabhu, I was informing him that, Krishangi is born, and then some months later, he asked me, "How is your daughter?" And she was about 8 months old. And I said, "She's doing well." And then he said, "I bet you she's got mother especially. There's no need to even speak about a mother. But parents are very automatically attached to their children. Even if they try to detach themselves, it's not possible. Only by the grace of these personalities that are here in the altar is a person able to give up family attachment. Even if you wake up in the morning and you say that from today, I'm going to try my best not to be attached to my children, right? You can make that decision at 6 o'clock in the morning. By 8 o'clock in the morning, you'll be completely attached, back to square one, no matter what you do. You can do your rounds very intensely, right? You can read Srimad Bhagavatam, you can read the Bhagavad Gita, you can read about death, but as soon as you see the face of your children, you'll become attached again. This is how Maya operates. And she said, so then why did you create these bonds which are so deep when you know that they can break at any time? Did you not think this through? So this is the pained heart of a mother speaking. And then she turns around and then she says to the dead body that who will feed us, who will give us oblations when we are going to hell? When we die and we're on our path to hell, who will give us oblations at that time? Because in the Vedic culture, generally marriage took place to have a child. And a child is necessary to continue the name, to continue the lineage. Why? So that they can offer oblations to the forefathers. But of course, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that as soon as one becomes a devotee, their debt to their forefathers is mitigated. Which means by Krishna Bhakti alone, so much can be achieved. Forefathers will be fed, so many generations benefit by Bhakti. So it doesn't mean that you don't owe them anything anymore, it's that by introducing Krishna Bhakti, they get so much more than just the usual oblations which family would give otherwise. And at this point, Chitraketu Maharaj was so like he was finished. He was lying there with his son, drooling, and he couldn't utter a word. And at this point, Narad Rishi and Angira, understanding that something significant had happened, came to the palace. And immediately they started to give instructions which were very beneficial. And the instructions were, I'm going to breeze through this because it's quite a long passage. They said, what is this relationship that you have? They told Chitraketu Maharaj straight away, what relationship do you have with this dead body? Tell us. You can say, so Chitraketu Maharaj could have said, this is my dead son. Then they said, what was your relationship with this child before he became your son? And also when you die, let's say your son survived, right? Please listen carefully because these are so important instructions for all of us. What is the relationship that you will have in the future? Because one day you're going to die. Then what? What relationship will you have with your son? Do you know that these family relationships are like particles of sand? Particles of sand sometimes are together, and then a wave comes, and then it pulls some sand away, and then some sand is remaining. If you don't believe me, tomorrow morning you can go to the beach and just observe, right? It's no coincidence that this verse is spoken on a beach. This is basically how everything happens. This is the system, right? Krishna says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe komaram yoganam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Those who are dhira means those who are learned, those who see things deeply, those who are introspective. They will understand that this is the laws of nature, that death can happen at any time. And also you should understand that not all seeds that are sowed bear fruit. You know, when you do a plantation, or let's say you have a strawberries, is it guaranteed that every seed that you put will become a strawberry plant? Some seeds don't fructify. You treat every seed the same, but some don't. In the same way, they said not every parent becomes, not every couple becomes a parent. Not everyone will get children. Some couples don't get children. You have to accept this. And in the purport, it's explained that actually Srila Prabhupada says, Chitraketu Maharaj was not meant to have a child. His destiny was not meant for children. In fact, the Lord has some extremely unique arrangement that they didn't want Chitraketu Maharaj to have a child the normal way. It's only that child was taken away. So not all relationships are supposed to have a child as a result of that relationship. You have to accept this. Chitraketu Maharaj, you did not have destiny for a child. And also you should realize all these relationships that we have in this world, they're all temporary. In fact, you're temporary. We are temporary. Right? It's not just that you're temporary. Your wives, all these Brahmins, and us, we're all temporary. We've met here for some time, and sometime later, we will go. Jai Guru. Then he reveals something quite interesting. He says, do you know how the Supreme Lord looks at this creation? He looks at this world, or he interacts with this world, how a child sometimes creates something on a beach, but is actually not even that interested. If you see children on a beach, sometimes they make a footprint, and then within a few seconds that footprint gets completely destroyed by the water. Does the child go back and then create a footprint? When he's a little bit older, does he try and create another footprint? No. Sometimes children just playing, they make a sandcastle, and then they maintain it for some time, and then afterwards they themselves destroy it just in playing. In the same way, this creation is not a primary activity of the Supreme Lord. Ye khel hai Bhagavan ke liye. This is a play. And do you know, nobody in this world is independent. You think that you're independent. You think that it's because of you this child has come. You think because of you this kingdom is running. You think because of you this business is running. We all have this condition. Every single one of us here who think that we're business people, right? Or we think we're workers. Every time we do something, we think this marketing has happened because of us. This result is because of us. Ahankar vimudhatma karta aham iti manyate. That this ego, ahankar, this false ego, right? The second ego that we're talking about. Vimudha. Then when someone becomes completely covered, ahankara vimud atma. Atma sometimes can mean mind, sometimes it can mean soul, but sometimes it can mean mind as well. It can mean body too. Ahankara vimud atma, the mind thinks in its ego, karta aham, I am the doer of everything. Iti manyate, believes that I am the doer of everything. But actually, the Lord does everything. He just uses different people to enact karma and desire. Everything is happening because of karma and desire, and the Lord is using people to enact those transactions. But the power is coming from Him. So all these divisions of nationality, if anyone thinks, oh, I'm Kenyan, I'm this national, I'm this race, I'm this individual, I'm a man, I'm a woman, this is very low level thinking. Only low people, people with very low intelligence, think in these terms. So when they spoke these words of wisdom, they spoke in more detail. We're summarizing. Chitraketu Maharaj wiped his tears and straight away felt a little bit less heavy. That's why when someone passes away, it's very important to hear truth, which is instructions from the Gita. In Sanatana Dharma, we hear instructions from the Gita, and that's really important. Because it actually really helps us to see truth when we're bewildered. And he said in 2 verses that it is people like you that roam the world, Brahmins like you who roam this world for the benefit of people like us, who completely lose our track in these moments. And then he gave so many rishis, the names of so many rishis, about 30 rishis he named. And he says, which one are you? Because they came disguised. He said, who are you? Vyas, Narad, Angira. Who are you from all these different types of sages? And then they revealed themselves. He said, I am the one who helped you to get this son. And this is Narad. And then Narad Muni did something quite interesting. So first he said to him, you know, Chitraketu Maharaj, you're a very great devotee, but you've just forgotten. In this moment of losing your son, you've gone into ignorance. So that's why we came and tried to revive you of this understanding. And Angira then said to him, you know, when I came to you, I was hoping to give you some divine instructions. When I came to you earlier, I wanted to give you spiritual knowledge. But at that time, you were distressed, you were upset. Tumko putra chahiye tha. You wanted a son so eagerly that I couldn't give you any divine instructions. So I just arranged for a yajna so that you would get a child. And this is important, that when we're preaching, sometimes preachers of any movement, we become so quick to try and convert somebody without thinking or reading the situation. First, we should preach. Preach meaning we should try and give knowledge to people. We should help everyone. But see where they're at, where their mind is at. One time, Lord Buddha was in his ashram. And there was a traveler who came, and his main preachers straight away grabbed him because he came to the ashram and he was there, and they straight away started preaching to him about knowledge, that this world is futile, everything is pointless, everything is temporary, turn inwards, happiness, peace is all within. And he wouldn't listen to anything. And this was quite shocking because they were quite powerful, intelligent preachers. So they went to Lord Buddha and they said, Ye manega, this person who's come to the ashram is not listening to us. And Lord Buddha said, have you fed him? Did you ask him? Is he hungry? They said, no, we forgot. Before even asking if he was hungry, straight away they started preaching. So they went up to him, they said, are you hungry? He said, I'm starving. And he said, all right, let's eat. So they fed him. Then they instructed him again. This time, those instructions had such a powerful effect that he became one of the most powerful preachers in the wake of the Buddhist movement. So Angira said, I didn't give you spiritual instructions, but you should understand that this is all, this world, this family, this relationship is all temporary. And you should also understand that if you are attached to this body, it will give you misery. I guarantee you that. You will be miserable. The body is simply a source of misery. But if you go for the soul is a source of joy. And he said, I want you to think deeply. Who are you? Are you the body? Are you the mind? Or are you really the soul? Who were you before you were Chitraketu? Who are you right now? Are you really a king? Because if you were a king, you'd be able to control destiny. You're not a king. What can you control? And also in the future, who do you want to be? In your next life, who do you want to be? And also, why are you in pain? Kene hamare jeevan tapatra iha na jani kemane hitta hai. Right? These were the first things that Sanatana Goswami posed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kene amare jeevan tapa trai. Why is my life full of tapa, miseries? These threefold, you should think, what is real? And the last thing I'll tell you is, if you really want peace in your life, then anything that you do has to be in connection with the Supreme Lord. anything that you do which is unconnected to the Supreme Lord, it will not give you peace. And then, so these were the instructions of Angira. So even though Chitraketu Maharaj felt better, still Angira pushed some of these further instructions into his consciousness. Why? To keep raising it. And finally, when he seemed to come to a place of what they call, the switch came on, enlightenment, knowledge. At that time, Narad then said, I want you to take shelter of the eternal Lord Sankarshan. Sankarshan Katum Sharan Lo, and I will instruct you on this. But before this, Narad first did something quite interesting. He got the soul of that son of Chitraketu Maharaj to go back into his body. But not as a young boy, but as a soul who was enlightened and who was just using the boy's body as a vehicle to convey material sound in the form of instructions. So some commentators said it was like a ghost, but not a scary one. Right? This way women don't think that it's like, some sort of a koi bhoot nahi tha. It was simply a body which was actually thinking and speaking. And so this child actually woke up and he said, he looked at Chitraketu Maharaj and said, you think you're my father, don't you? But I'll tell you one thing, that I have been a demigod in previous lifetimes. I've been an animal in other lifetimes. I've been a plant in other lifetimes. And I've been a human sometimes. And in each birth, I had different parents. So now when I look at you, I actually don't look at you and think that you're my father, because I can remember so many fathers. Sometimes this question is asked that why don't we remember our previous life? If we could remember our previous life, then we would know what we've done and then we wouldn't do it again. Do you know, this is actually where the problem is. This is not true. If you could remember what you did in a previous lifetime, and you think that it will stop you from doing something in this lifetime, you're wrong. You won't do it for some time. So let's say in a previous lifetime, let's say that I am married, but I also had a relationship outside marriage. And then suddenly I remembered, last time I had a relationship outside marriage, I lost my marriage. And it was really bad, and my wife left me, my children left me, and I was alone, and I found it very difficult. I would abstain for 1 month or 2 months. In the 3rd month, my nature would overtake me again, and I would continue that relationship. And this is proven. So many times people go to jail for doing the wrong thing. Then as soon as they come out of jail, they just continue doing the wrong thing again after some time. Then they go back in jail. So it's not necessary. Anybody who argues, why can't we remember our previous lifetime? One of our answers should be, it doesn't stop the living entity from doing its own nature again. It doesn't help you to remember your previous lifetime. And also, remembering your previous lifetime also brings emotions. Imagine I could remember who my parents were in my last life. Imagine they were still alive. Imagine I went to them, right? Imagine they were 100 years old. Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, you're my parents, but then I have my parents in this lifetime. Imagine I had a wife in my previous lifetime and I died really early and she's 60 years old right now. Imagine I went to her and all these feelings come back and I'll be like, oh my God, you're 60 years old, do you remember we did this, this. Imagine what would happen to my current wife. She'd be like, how many women are you married to? Right? And then imagine I say, look, my old wife from my previous lifetime is all alone. Right? She's got nobody. And I know you've got nobody, so let me also spend some time with her because I have this responsibility. I'm just saying, kitna khichdi hai isme. There's so many issues. But this soul remembered so much, then they can remember because they remember without any attachments. Right? Like Jag Bharat remembered his previous lifetime. Okay? So he said that in all these lives, do you know what happens? We make friends, and then with those same friends, within a few years we make enemies again. And then suddenly we don't talk to each other. And then suddenly we're talking to each other again like nothing happened. And suddenly then our friends have a fight, and then we're literally mediating the situation. And then sometimes we see someone, we're neutral with that person, and then we become very close to that person. Then that person moves to another country, and then we become distant again with that person. And then they say something to us on the phone, or they misunderstand us, then suddenly we hate them again. Nobody is related to us. You can see that. Guaranteed, every person who has a very good relationship with their wife, their child, their this, at one point they think, I wish my wife could have been more like this person. Every father thinks, I wish my son was more like him. Every son thinks, I wish my father was more like this person. What does this show? It shows that relationships are very flimsy in this world. And this is what this child is pointing out. And he said, do you know what the soul is like? This child said, the soul is like gold. Gold, today you can go to a shop, there's a nice pendant, right? Gold pendant, and then you buy it. And then sometime later, you don't have money, so you sell that gold again to somebody else, or you give it to your daughter. And then your daughter says, well, I don't need it, it's the modern world, who wears gold anymore? Right? In modern times, especially in Kenya, you're a little bit fearful wearing so much gold. In India you see it, especially South Indians, right? They have this culture of wearing so much gold. North Indians even have that, right? Gujaratis are a little bit different, especially Gujaratis in Kenya, right? They don't wear all these gold, shawl, bangle, shangle, all these things, right? It's very subtle what we wear. So jewelry is coming out of fashion. So what do? You go to these jewelry houses and give it back to the jeweler. So gold is moving from one shop to an owner, to a daughter, back to another shop. Gold is just moving. He says the soul is like that. It doesn't belong to anybody. And all these things that, these are your parents. Your parents are not given to you because you love them. Your parents are given to you because you've got a son, they fed you, they brought you up. But sometimes parents can be neglectful. They can be quite horrible. They can, be quite mean if they're going through their own problems in their life. We didn't choose our parents. The point is that we don't get parents because of love. We get parents because of karma. Love, so-called love, is some sort of a byproduct of that situation. The soul is eternal. There's no death for the soul. And just like the Lord, the soul doesn't get attracted to all these different types of illusions when it's in its pure state. It doesn't hate anyone, it doesn't love anyone, it's not attached to anything. And the Lord is the same. The Lord is, it says, Sammoham Sarva Bhuteshu. Name Dvesho Asti Na Priyaha. Sammoham Sarva Bhuteshu. I am equal to everyone. Now when the Lord says that I am equal to everyone, does that mean that He's inconsiderately equal to everyone? No. He is kind to everyone equally. Just how the sun doesn't sit there and think, you know what, he stole some clothes today, so I'm not going to shine on him. The sun shines, doesn't matter who you are. So the Lord is equal to everyone. He gives air for everyone. He gives the laws of karma to everyone. Everything is available to everyone. But then the Lord says, Ye bhajanta mam bhakta. But if anyone worships me, mai te tesu chapiyaham. But if anybody worships me, then I especially become very friendly to them. So we have to understand that Krishna is generally kind to everyone. But as soon as one becomes friendly to the Lord, he really becomes friendly to that person. He gives himself to that person. There's a real friendship that develops. And if we're subtle, we'll see that friendship coming through in so many situations. It's unbelievable. So he says, in the same way, when the living entity is not illusioned, it doesn't hate anyone, it doesn't love anyone, it's free, it's peaceful. And as soon as, and the son spoke that in front of all the family members, every single person, because of Narad's grace. So that was amazing. When these words were spoken, every single person became detached. Everyone realized the truth. And in fact, even the women who had poisoned the child, they came and said, actually, we poisoned this child. So they all went, the Brahmins, the wives, Chitraketu Maharaj, Ritaduti, every single one of them went to a holy river and they had a bath and they cleansed, especially those ladies who had poisoned this child, they cleansed themselves of the sin of poisoning this child. When you've done something wrong, look, right, there's a saying, to err is human. When we do something wrong, you know what the best thing to do is? Just go and admit it. Never have this ego that, how can I be the first one to say sorry? What does it mean? I'm sorry, I'm wrong. That's such a nice thing. Humility to you. It just, and it puts you back where we belong. That we can make mistakes. Who here can really put up their hand and say we're perfect? Nobody, right? Yeah. Maybe Krishna's putting up his hand inside. Maybe he's doing that. But apart from that, who can say that? So they went and admitted that this is what we did. And then straight after that, Narad Muni gave Chitraketu the Sankarshan mantra. And that mantra is mantras of glory, worship and praise. And as soon as Chitraketu Maharaj started, 1 week, as a byproduct of that worship, he became the king of the Vidyadharas. Vidyadharas means those who have knowledge. There's different types of living entities. The Charanas, the Siddhas, the Vidyadharas, the Apsaras, the Devas. There's so many different types of living entities. And then once he became the king of the Vidyadharas, he continued chanting this mantra. He didn't think, now I'm the king of the Vidyadharas, this is my new position. Because bhakti does give opulences. When you do bhakti, there's sometimes byproduct opulences which you will get. Praise, fame, recognition, position. As soon as you do bhakti very well, someone will call you, Prabhu, can you manage this? Can you do this? You know, can you become the leader of these new group of devotees? You'll get all of that kind of stuff. But he still continued concentrating on his mantras. And within just, it's mentioned in the Bhagavad, within just a few days, something amazing happened. He got darshan of Lord Bhagavan Sankarshan. And Sankarshan was very beautiful. It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you can take your mind to this description and go a little bit deep, it's very beautiful. Completely white in color like the fibers of a lotus flower. Blue garment, beautiful helmet, Kiritina, beautiful earrings, a really nice waist belt. These days people wear like, you know, these belts has become a fashion. Gucci, belts, fake or not fake, right? Looks, you know, looks quite swag sometimes, but the Lord has an even cooler belt, right? Which is made of real stuff, original designer stuff. And then bells, bangles, and it's mentioned that he has pink toenails. His toenails have a pinkish hue to them. And he wears just an earring on his left ear, one. Not two, one. And a very, very charming look in his eyes, really gentle, very soft, very pleasing, full of love. And as soon as Chitraketu Maharaj saw this vision, his heart became completely clean. Pura shuddha ho gaya, Hriday. He became very grave. What is one sign of bhakti is that you actually become very brave because it's a burden of love that you're carrying in your heart. And he became very brave, and suddenly tears of love started falling down his eyes. His hair stood on end, and because of that burden of affection, he went towards the Lord, and he collapsed. And he cried so much when he was next to the Lord, that the Lord's feet became wet. You can give the Lord an abhishek of juices, panchamrit, honey, so many things. But the one abhishek that Krishna looks for is the abhishek of the eyes. When a devotee cries, Krishna is so happy with those tears, when they're genuine. That is the biggest abhishek that a devotee can give the Lord. So many times, if you're not Brahmin initiated or you're not on the altar, and during festivals, the Lord is being bathed. So sometimes in your heart you think, I wish I was there. I wish I could bathe the Lord. I wish I could put some strawberry juice on him. I wish I could put some honey on him. But if you can't, no problem. Offer the Lord some tears. Someone can say, are tears so cheap that you can just, manufacture them? Just like this? Then at least you can offer a prayer that, my dear Lord, one day, may I cry with my heart in longing and separation from you, and let these tears fall, and let that abhishek fall on you. So many tears fell from Chitraketu Maharaj's eyes that he wasn't even able to speak, and the Lord just allowed him to be there. Something interesting happened when Akrur first reached Vrindavan. Akrur's journey to Vrindavan is one of the most beautiful passages in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it goes through every thought process that Akrur had. One is, imagine someone tells you right now, just go through this imagination sometimes. I do, because of this katha. Imagine someone told you, can you go to the airport and pick up Krishna and Balram? They're coming. And can you bring them here? Can you imagine what you would go through in your journey? Akrur was thinking that, will they even recognize me? Will they know who I am? Will they look at me like I'm a familiar person, or will they just kind of look at me and say, oh, hello, I'm Krishna and Balram, who are you? But then he would say, no, they are the Paramatma, Sakshine, Bhagavan. He is the eternal witness. He knows every single living entity. But then he would think, no, but I'm so full. And like that, he went in these beautiful waves. Ultimately, when he came to Vrindavan, when he saw the fresh footprints of Krishna and Balram that they just passed here not so long ago, he got off the chariot and he fell on those footprints. He was just crying. He was saying, are these the footprints of my Lord? Are these the footprints of my Lord? And then he got back onto his chariot somehow, and he went to Krishna and Balram. And at that time, there was a beautiful ceremony going on. We call it a ceremony because every day they do this. They were in the cow shed, milking the cows. And milking the cows is not some sort of a, just a gentle ritual that you can imagine, peaceful, it's not like that. Vrindavan is different. Vrindavan is noisy. Jaldi doodh le aao, is gai ko dona hai, There's so much noise going on, there's commotion going on, there's dancing going on, right? Sometimes just one bucket gets filled with milk and Krishna and Balaram start dancing in celebration that, ek bucket ho gaya, It's just so much masti. Then, someone is slipping, someone slips and falls in the keychain. Krishna and Balaram go to them, then they laugh at them, then they pick them up. Then another one says, oh, bring this cow, like, it's drinking the milk. It's such a beautiful, so Akrur saw this from a distance, and he saw that Krishna and had his arm around Balaram, and he was just smiling and gently looking. And Akrur was there and thinking, these are my two lords. And he went and he jumped at their feet, and he was rolling around. And something really interesting happened here. Krishna did it, and Balaram didn't turn and recognize Akrur, like they didn't even look at him. Now when you read that in the Bhagavatam, you think, oh my God, what if I did that and Krishna didn't even look at me? It's like scary. But the reason they didn't do that was because Akrura's heart wanted to remain at their feet for such a long time. He wanted to release all his love and emotion at their feet. So Krishna and Balaram purposely looked away for quite some time to give Akrura that time alone with their feet, so to speak. And then after, when Akrura had, you can say, expressed his emotions, then they said, you know, my dear uncle, every Lebhe Manorathan Sarvan, every one of Akrura's desires were fulfilled. So in the same way, Chitraketu Maharaj was crying, and then for a long time, he couldn't say anything. And finally, he was able to get himself together, and he offered some beautiful prayers to the Lord in quite a few shlokas. And these prayers come from self-realization. Sometimes we ask, how come we can't sing a song from outside in the temple, right? Like I remember going to one function, just, you know, some general Sanatan Dharmis, Indians, they said, please come, we're going to have some bhajans. So being relatives, so to speak, or distant relatives, we said, we'll go. And then the band started singing this Hindi song, Soni Teri Chala Soni Ve, right? But addressing it to Krishna, which means that, oh, your walk is so amazing. Now, the question is that it applies to Krishna best, because nobody can walk like the Lord. But why can't we sing this song? Like right now, okay, the deities have gone to sleep. But why can't we all get together and sing this Hindi song, Soni Teri Chala Soni Ve, right? This, your walk, Lagdi Kamala Soni Ve. It looks amazing. Why can't we sing that song to the Lord? Because it applies to Him. Because there's a couple of reasons. Number one, that song was not made for the Lord. That person who composed those lyrics did not compose those lyrics as an offering to the Supreme Lord. Secondly, they're not imbued with humility. So first thing is, the Lord doesn't accept something which has been offered for something else, right? Something which, you know, for example, like a second-hand car, right? Would you take a second-hand car and offer that to like the biggest king and say, look, I've got a present for you? Never. So the Lord should be offered new things, and it should be given by those who are self-realized. So those people who